Okay, so the fall runway shows are over, but if you were paying attention during Fashion Week, you might have noticed a bit of a vibe shift. The clothes were ever so subtly more conservative. And off the runway, MAGA's influence is becoming even more obvious. I'm Emil Niazi, sitting in for Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Kelsey Stigman and Tashira Halyard are here to talk about how American politics are reshaping fashion. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thank you.
So, Tashira, let's paint a really clear picture here. Can you describe this trend? What does the MAGA aesthetic look like?
Yeah, so I call it the Trumpification of fashion, where it feels that we've swung right, not just sociopolitically, but also in our fashion choices. Obviously, fashion reflects a larger society and systems at play. And so it looks like what started, if you ask me, with a lot of these conversations around stealth wealth and quiet luxury, kind of toning it down. And now we've swung fully into a much more modest and covered style of dressing I'm seeing for women.
So what is that? Is that like those prairie dresses that are like really long and they cover your arms and they like go down to your ankles? Is it polo shirts for guys? Like I remember the Unite the Right rally in 2017 that suddenly the polo became the sort of symbol of a certain type of person.
Exactly. And I also think, and we see this a lot among some of the young Republicans and the followers of Charlie Kirk, et cetera, this kind of very preppy aesthetic. And I think the prairie dresses that you just described, it makes me think about trad wives, the traditional wife movement, and how that also falls under the larger MAGA umbrella. And so we're seeing younger and younger people who, at a time maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, definitely in between Trump 1.0 and 1.2, maybe during the Biden era, that were having a good time with styles of dress, bright colors, just fun, even coming down the runway. That's become dampened down, and it's a signal towards maybe more suiting, more workwear aesthetics, and just a lot less fun overall, honestly.
Kelsey, what kind of shift did you see on the runways this fall?
There was a very clear shift on the runways, and this has been happening for a couple of seasons now. I was able to pinpoint it pretty much to the time that Joe Biden announced his second run for presidency, sort of the time that Americans had to start making peace with the fact that we could potentially have to live through another Trump presidency. That's really when the quiet luxury started coming into style. And now it's all over the runways, particularly suiting and workwear, very somber, very serious. Like Tashira said, super different than all of the very celebratory looks we were seeing under Biden. It's showing up everywhere. Gucci, Prada, Tory Burch, Saint Laurent. Saint Laurent specifically has this one suit that has been worn by almost every celebrity, and even celebrities whose personal style is completely different than what you would, classify as workwear. Like Ariana Grande, for example, her style is I don't even think seen her in a suit before this moment. So it's really becoming super widespread, both on the runways and then people in the streets as well.
Can I jump in here?
Yes, please do.
Please.
Because I think I want to make a distinction that dressing more conservatively or modestly is something that many people have chosen outside of any social-political structure at play,
Absolutely.
right? And whether it be for religious reasons or for just your personal interests. I'm someone who actually loves suiting. I love a loafer. I say I look like a lesbian high school principal on my best day when I get up to get dressed, okay? So I want to make that distinction that we're talking about not just individual styling, but to Kelsey's great point, people who we know actually wouldn't typically choose these trends are now playing into them. Makes me think about Sophia Richie and how many of us were really shocked when she got married, how conservative during her wedding weekend her styling was. I think she was either sponsored by or gifted a lot of Chanel pieces, very classic Chanel pieces that honestly made many of us fashion girlies kind of yawn because it gave grandma and not quite young and vibrant in the way that we had once known her to be.
Yes, this is Nicole Richie's younger sister. She's Lionel Richie's daughter, and she is so young. And you're right, she really sort of became the symbol for that quiet luxury, that pulled back hair, really simple makeup. And yeah, very sort of, I hate to say older, but it signals a much older person than she is. She's just in her early 20s, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It gave geriatric. I'm not going.
Well, Kelsey, let's talk about that, because if you're not MAGA, right? If outside the aesthetic of, say, Melania Trump or Laura Loomer or Kristi Noem, how is this being reflected in just the average person? Because I know fashion, as we saw in The Devil Wears Prada, even if you're not a fashionista, even if you're not paying attention to the cerulean belt, fashion still has a way of changing how the regular person dresses. So how are you seeing that just in the average person who's not necessarily conservative?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to what we're seeing on runways and the celebrity examples I gave, which is that people are more so prioritizing workwear and suits. Like, for example, like fashion editors, just even that small group of people, we typically are able to wear the most crazy outfits to work. And now all of a sudden everyone's wearing suits like we're accountants. Like that's just, people are really leaning more into suiting. And I think that there's a lot of reasons for why that is. And of course, none of them are because people are actually MAGA. I think the subgroup of MAGA actually dresses very differently than these conservative trends that we're seeing, as Tashira pointed out. These are more so, the conservative trend that we're addressing is more so inspired by the overall climate of the country versus your political beliefs.
Yeah, so Tashira, let's talk about that, because obviously there are a lot of variables at play here, but why are we seeing this become so prominent now?
Great question. I mean, from what we see here in the States, it's an overall signal towards traditional gender norms, right? It is a stamping out of inclusivity. It's a whole stop woke movement, which really just meant recognizing people's humanity in their everyday lived experiences and taking them from the margins into the center. It is this idea that in order for America to be great again, there are two genders and there are particular styles of dress and behaviors that should be attached to those things. And if you are a cisgender woman, a hetero woman, it is a particular way that you should show up in society. And that is, of course, to be covered, to be white, to be thin, to be blonde. And if you are not those things, then the harder time you're going to have in our society.
Kelsey, what's your take on that, on why this is happening now?
I think there are many, many reasons why. I think Americans are living in survival mode. They're just trying to get by and stop democracy from collapsing entirely. And the suit is easy. It's effortless. It's the ultimate choice for when your brain is focused on much more important things than accessorizing and picking an outfit. And it's also possible that customers are feeling the subconsciously reflecting the political climate that they're experiencing through their dresses. Like I said before, the joyous, flamboyant kind of styles that we saw under Biden, whether that's Barbiecore, Bowmania, visible thongs, visible nipples, people no longer feel appropriate, and B, people probably no longer feel safe. Like, especially the body exposing, the naked dressing, which was probably the number one biggest trend under Joe Biden. We're seeing an absolute erasure of that on the runway. And I think people likely probably also don't just feel safe in public in Trump's America to go out like that. I also think there's financial causes. The job market is currently in the negative. Economists have long predicted that Trump's policies will be catastrophic to the American economy. And we're already seeing this begin to take hold. So I think that shoppers could also be potentially leaning into professionalism aesthetically in an attempt to create some sort of job security for themselves. Dress for the job you want to keep, right?
Yeah.
And I also think, suiting, for which, is the largest point that we've been making, is timeless. If you are coming into an era of recession, into financial strain, you can't shop a lot. These are pieces that are timeless. They're going to last you all the way through, hopefully this presidency. And I also think that Tashira touched on this momentarily, but for those in the LGBTQ community, for example, our gender identity and our sexual identity is so closely tied to the way we dress. And a lot of, with Trump's anti-trans, anti-woman, anti-anyone who's not a straight white man rhetoric, a lot of people probably do not feel safe to go out in public dressed in a way that aligns with their identity. So suiting is a great way to blend in, to hide from the world, and to become invisible.
Can I jump in?
Yeah,
Do you
please.
mind? I would love to respond to this. So many great points, Kelsey. I
Thank you.
think on this idea around suiting, feeling safe. I mean, we know right now that Black women, especially in this country, are facing a job loss, job insecurity crisis. But I just want to remind folks that how we dress is not going to get us a job. Or nor should it deny us a job. This is a structural issue at play that goes back to the economic system here in America. So that's number one. Number two, Kelsey, on your point around feeling safe, that is so true, you all, because I think about the fact that not just the president, but many members of his cabinet have been accused of and or convicted of some form of sexual assault. And so when it comes down to those being in power in this country and what that signals to us and our safety and our bodily autonomy, that is a huge point.
Well, it makes me think of that very tense moment with the Ukrainian president when, the vice president said, "Why are you not in a suit? Show respect." And it really seems like it's coming from the top down. And so these points are so interesting that you're making. Kelsey, I wonder about this whole back to work movement as well. Work from home really meant we were all in leisure wear. It meant people were sort of dressing in a very radically different way. And now suddenly the corporations are demanding that people return to the offices. Does that have anything to do with all of this sort of new workwear that people are trending towards?
It absolutely could. Like I said, I think the job market probably subconsciously plays a large role into this trend. And, literally, it could be because their bosses are saying you need to come to the office now, which, as we know, was also part of Trump's weird campaign. I think Elon Musk was pushing for in-office return of the government. So this is also tied to that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So Tashira, are there any bright spots out there? You know what I mean? Like, we do also use fashion to send a message of resistance. Is there anything you're seeing that points to that, to people sort of using fashion to say, I'm not for what is happening right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. I think there are communities of color, especially, who are taking this moment to dig deep and to dig into community. I think about designers like Hanifa. I think about jewelry brands like Koi, Sergio Hudson. These are brands that are still making bright, beautiful clothing and jewelry and pieces. We are still choosing to adorn ourselves despite the current social political climate. And for me, in my work through politics and fashion, I often say that fashion is a form of resistance, especially for those who've been marginalized by larger society. I think it demonstrates that no matter what moment we're in, we're still going to celebrate ourselves and how we show up in the world.
I love that. Really appreciate both of you being here and chatting with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Tashira Halyard is a lawyer, fashion writer, and podcaster based in Virginia. And Kelsey Stigman is a fashion editor. You can read her recent piece on MAGA fashion in Teen Vogue. She's in New York City.